Hello gamers, right, we're back with another Elden Ring Nightreign build. Today we're looking at a build that I've been using for a while, essentially because the game has got, I don't want to say it's too easy, but apart from the Everdarks, which once you start fighting the Everdarks, you know, a few times they get easy themselves, the game has become fairly easy. So what we're doing is we're using a poison build. Now if you don't know, poison essentially lowers the AR of your weapon, because obviously you're getting damage over time rather than the damage, the flat damage from your weapon. So essentially you still have, the weapon is still quite weak, and even the poison that you get from the poison weapon, over time I still don't think it wouldn't out DPS the weapon that you're using if you was just say running a standard weapon or a lightning or a holy weapon. So this build I'm running essentially to make the game a little bit more challenging, because obviously if you have a weaker weapon it takes longer to kill the boss. Now to go along with this, we're obviously going to have a big damaging option for when we need it. And that's why we're running Poison Moth. Now, if you don't know what Poison Moth is, essentially poison the enemy, hit them with the Ash of War, Poison Moth, and it does a big chunk of damage. Now, the reason we're using the Duchess and we're not using someone like the Executor, who would be essentially way more powerful with this build, is because she has a restage ability. Now, you're all probably familiar with the Duchess restage ability. Essentially gives you 50% of the damage you've just done. If you're using the relic that gives you the restage, the reprise dagger events, I think it does like 33%, if I'm not, you know, I'm probably wrong in that, so I'm sure someone will correct me if I am. So essentially you're going to hit them with the Poison Moth, which is going to do anywhere from 500 to 1000 damage. Especially when you get to like level 15, it's very strong. Once you obviously poison them, then you hit them with a restage, you're going to be getting half that damage back. So that's how you're going to turn this low AR build into a high AR build if you need it. Now obviously some things to be aware of: when you're using poison and you poison the bosses, over time they're going to get resistant to the poison, so it's going to take you longer to proc it. And this is what I mean by it just makes the fights a little bit longer, a little bit more fun, because you're not hitting them with some super AR shattering crystal and it's destroying them in, you know, less than a minute. So that's why I've decided to use this poison build. It's one that I've actually used in the base game Elden Ring many moons ago when the game was first released. So yeah, I thought I'd give it a try in Nightreign, and it is just as fun and just as strong in Nightreign as it was in Elden Ring. Now in terms of relics, I have pretty good relics for this build. In fact, I would say I have mostly perfect relics for this build. The one main relic that everyone has access to is going to be the Noster relic, so the one that increases your max FP. Starting armament includes poison, and then the poison and right vicinity increases your attack power. That's obviously going to help your DPS over time if you need it. The other two relics go perfectly with this build. In fact, I would say they're probably god tier relics. Now, the top one, you got defeating enemies while R is active, ups attack power. If you didn't know, when you kill an enemy whilst you're in the invisibility art, essentially you get a 15% damage boost for every enemy you kill for 30 seconds. That's obviously an insane damage boost if you're utilising it. We don't utilise it that much in this run, but essentially that is one that you should look at if you're not using for the Duchess. Now, the next one is the improved attack power with 3+ daggers equipped. Now, essentially, if you have 3 daggers equipped, you get an extra 10% damage boost. I nearly always have a minimum of 2 daggers for the Duchess, so what's throwing on a 3rd dagger for that 10% extra damage. And obviously the last one's the Poison Moth, that's what we need, that's part of the build. The bottom relic is obviously the successive dagger attack reprises events upon nearby enemies. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, when you use this portion of the relic, that gives you it's roughly a 30% damage boost rather than the 50% damage boost when you just use your skill normally. Partial HP restoration, that's obviously one of the best relic effects, if not the best relic effect in the game. And then obviously endurance +2, just extra endurance, that was just what was on the relic. Now, for those of you who cannot put down the staff for the Duchess, obviously a lot of these attack power boosts, I do believe they'll also raise your attack power for your sorceries as well. So essentially when you've proc the poison or you've got the 3+ daggers, all that stuff will also still raise the attack power of your sorcery. Now again, I could be wrong on that. It's not something I've actually tested. I would assume that's the case. Obviously, if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. But yeah, essentially you are going to be getting a damage boost that way as well if you still want to be a caster. Now, obviously someone is probably going to say, all these damage boosts that I'm getting, I could just use the Evergel relic and it would be more damage than all of them together. The whole point of me making a build is to not include the Evergel. Now, if I include the Evergel, it's no longer a poison/poison moth build. It's now just Evergel with a different name. That's all it is. So that's the reason why I'm not using the Evergel method. Obviously, that is the strongest relic in the game. You know, it only takes like, what is it, 4 or 5 Evergels, and you're already getting a bigger damage boost than you would be from the poison, attack power buff, and the daggers equipped. So yeah, there is the option to just use the Evergel, and obviously if you have the relics for it, use the Evergel on top of this, it would make it even stronger. But once again, if I'm using the Evergel relic, it's no longer a poison moth / poison build, it's now just another Evergel relic build. Now again, this build would work better with the Executor because he has a much bigger arcane scaling, which means he'll deal poison to the bosses and the enemies a lot quicker. His weapon also has innate bleed, so you've also got the chance of proccing bleed, and you're probably more likely to find things like the Lord of Blood's talisman and being offered the boss rewards, the extra 20% boost when when bleed occurs. So overall, the Executor would be a better choice for this build. So if you wanted to do a stronger version with higher DPS, then go for the Executor. So, as we mentioned, talismans, obviously the Kindred's Rot Exaltation would work really well with this build. It's when you proc poison, you get a 20% damage boost for 20 seconds, I believe. So, that paired with the poison attack power from the Gnoster Relic, which is obviously 12%, plus killing enemies while the art is active, which is an extra 15%. Essentially, you're going to be able to create something that's really powerful if you really wanted to. Obviously, it takes a lot of work to be able to put those things together, and it's not a very big amount of time to be able to do that. But essentially, the option's there if you need to do that. So gamers, for those of you who are still here, you're an absolute Chad. As always, I love you the most because you stayed to the end and you helped me out on the YouTube algorithm. Now, that's pretty much it for the build. Obviously, let me know in the comments if you do decide to use it. Let me know in the comments if you've used it before, because it is a really fun build. It makes the game, it doesn't make it more difficult, but it makes the fights last longer, which means essentially you have more fun. That's how I see it. And obviously, it's using something different. It's not using the Evergel method, which, don't get me wrong, I absolutely use the shit out of the Evergel method because it is way too strong to not use it. I have a video coming up where I talk about many of things in the game which I would like to change. That's one of them. I don't think it should be removed because I do think it's fun, and it does give you and the team a goal to work towards, especially if you're playing with randoms. That being said, I do think it's a little bit overtuned, and I do think 5% for each Evergel is too much. But I'll discuss that further in the video that's coming out. Hopefully I'm going to be able to get that by the end of the week. It is one that I've taken quite a long time to make. It has a lot, it touches on a lot of subjects, the Evergels being one of them. So yeah, stick around for that one. If you are new here, hit the follow button. It helps me out massively and keep you up to date with the videos that are coming out. As always, gamers, big love. Catch you on the next one. Stay safe. Peace.